today we're going to be learning about solving two-step equations. But first, let's take a look at a one-step equation. This is a one-step equation, a plus 1 equals 5. Gita, can you tell me what the variable in this equation is?
Is it a?
That's correct. Remember, we usually represent variables by a lowercase letter, and the variable usually represents some number. So you can think of the variable as kind of like a blank space, where you can fill in a number and see if it works. But how are we going to find what a should be? Well, the first thing we want to do is isolate a on the left side. And we do that by subtracting 1 from both sides. Remember, you have to subtract or add the same thing to both sides in order to make sure that the equation is the same. So in this case, we will start by subtracting 1 from the left side, and then we have to remember to also subtract 1 from the right side. This helps us because plus 1 and minus 1 cancel out. In other words, the net result is 0. So on the left-hand side, we're left with a, we have our equal sign, and the right-hand side, Samuel, what's 5 minus 1?
4.
4, that's correct. So now we know that a should be 4, and we can quickly check that our answer is correct by plugging in 4 in place of our variable. And so we see that 4 plus 1 is 5, which means that we did it correctly. Let's move on to a two-step equation. This looks a little bit more complicated, but we can follow 2 basic steps to get to the right answer. Arvin, what is the variable in this two-step equation?
A.
That's correct. We're using the same letter A, but again, it's just a number that we have to find. So let's try the same thing that we did for this equation. Let's try to get rid of this 1 from the left side. So again, we will do the same thing to both sides of the equation. We will subtract 1. So this is the left side minus 1, and now we do the right side minus 1. Now that we've done this, we want something that looks a little bit nicer. So we like to take our plus 1 and minus 1 and rewrite that as basically plus 0, which is the same thing as doing nothing. So the left-hand side becomes 2 times a. Now the right-hand side, Samuel, what's 9 minus 1?
8.
That's correct. So the right side is now 8. And so we got a little bit closer. It almost looks like we have our variable a alone on the left side, but we still have this pesky 2 that's multiplied by it. So remember, 2a is the same thing as 2 multiplied by a. And so, yeah, can you tell me what the opposite of multiplication is?
Division?
That's correct. So if we want to do the opposite of multiplying by 2, we should divide by 2. In this case, we're going to divide both sides by 2. Okay? And so now, if we multiply by 2 and divide by 2, that's the same thing as multiplying by 1, which is the same thing as doing nothing, really. So now, we just have 1 multiplied by a, which is the same thing as a. And for the right side, Arvin, what's 8 divided by 2? 4. That's correct. So the right-hand side now becomes 4. And now we have the exact same thing where we know that a should be 4. And we can check that our answer is correct by, again, replacing the variable a with our solution. 2 times 4 equals 8. So we know that this is the same thing as 8 plus 1 equals 9. And of course, 8 plus 1 does equal 9. So this is correct. So to recap, we did 2 main steps to solve a two-step equation. The first thing we did is we tried to make all of the numbers that weren't multiplied by a variable go to the right side of the equation. In this case, we wanted the 1 right here to go to the right side. And we did that by adding or subtracting the same number to both sides so that the 1 would cancel. Then our second step, which starts on this line right here, is that we would take any numbers that are multiplied by the variable and either multiply or divide them by both sides so that we're left with the variable alone. In this case, the number multiplied by the variable was 2. So we divided both sides by 2. And that led us to our final result.
Cool.